If you're applying for a K1 visa, Form I-134 Declaration of Financial Support is essential to fill out for your K1 visa petition. In this video, I wanted to explain everything you need to know about this form, including a step-by-step tutorial on how to fill out the form correctly and accurately, show you all the supporting documents you require for the form, highlight all the key information as per the USCIS guidelines, and also answer all the common questions such as where and when to file this form, how much does it cost, who fills out the form, as well as what to do if you cannot financially support your partner. Our K1 visa was approved with no RFE, and our green card was approved within 5 months with no request for evidence or interview. So I hope this video helps guide you on your journey. Let me highlight some key aspects of the form. You're going to start filling out this form and preparing the relevant supporting documents once you've received your NOAA 2. And are awaiting your visa embassy appointment. The I-134 is filled out by the U.S. petitioner, in this case me, the U.S. citizen, and is used to show that I can financially support my beneficiary, the non-U.S. citizen who I'm sponsoring to move to the USA. The petitioner must demonstrate that they meet an income of 100% of the federal poverty guideline for a given size of your household, as listed by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Once the U.S. petitioner has filled out the form, they send it to the beneficiary for them to take to their visa embassy appointment. The form does not have to be mailed anywhere. It is not filed with USCIS, nor is there any cost for this form. And I'm going to touch on some important tips on sending your form to your beneficiary later in this video. So let's begin filling out the form. As a reference, we're two individuals who have never been married before, nor have kids or dependents. So the way I filled out this form is a reflection of these circumstances. In your case, some aspects may be different. The form can be downloaded on the USCIS website, and there is a document titled Instructions that also provides guidance on filling out the form and aspects that you may be unsure about. The first thing to do is make sure you're using the most current, up-to-date version of this form. The form must be filled out in black ink and can either be filled out by hand or typed in. Just remember to sign your signature on this form by hand. For Part 1, Question 1, you're going to answer and check the box for I am filling this form on behalf of another individual who is the beneficiary. As I mentioned, this form is filled out by the U.S. citizen petitioner to show and demonstrate that they have the financial means to support their non-U.S. citizen fiancé once they enter the USA on a K1 visa. Your beneficiary won't be able to work in the USA until they either get their green card or their work permit. So this form is just to demonstrate that you can provide financial support for them during this period and that they won't be a hindrance to the United States government. So Part 2 is information about the individual agreeing to financially support the beneficiary, i.e. me, the U.S. petitioner. So this section is all about the U.S. petitioner. Filling out this form is going to feel very similar to filling out the I-129F petition. So I highly recommend having that on hand so you can easily copy over the information and to keep all the details accurate and consistent. Question 1 asks your current legal name. So I've entered my last name, first name, and I've written NA for middle name as I do not have one. Just remember to write NA instead of leaving any fields blank. It's not mandatory to do so. However, it provides clarity to USCIS that you have explicitly indicated that you've considered the question and determined that it does not apply to you, rather than you accidentally overlooking it. Question 2 asks for other names used. And once again, you can use your I-129F application as reference to fill out the same exact information. But this question is asking for all other names you have ever used, including aliases, maiden name, and nicknames. I have not used any other names, so I'm going to write NA. Question 3 asks for your mailing address. So I've just written my name, street address, city, state, zip code, and country. Just to reiterate, this is the information of the U.S. petitioner. Question 4 asks if your current mailing address is the same as your current physical address. In my case, I check the yes box, as it's the same. If you are checking the no box, you'll need to enter your physical address, i.e. where you live, in the next question. So question 5, I've written NA in all the fields as it doesn't apply to me, as my physical and mailing addresses were the same. Question 6 is asking my date of birth. Just remember to write in US format with the month, date, and year. So I've written 04/13/1991. Question 7 asks my place of birth. So I wrote the city, which is Los Angeles, the state, which is California, and the country, which is the United States. Question 8 asks for my alien registration number, or my A number. I was born a US citizen, so I do not have an A number, so I've written NA. This is not asking for the A number of your beneficiary. Similarly, for question 9, I've written NA because it's asking for my USCIS online account number, which I do not have. Question 10 asks my current immigration status. I am a US citizen, so I've checked this box. Of course, your status may be different, so fill this out according to your circumstances. As per the instructions of this form, you'll need to provide proof of your immigration status. It states, provide evidence of your status. A US citizen or US national may file a copy of a birth certificate, certificate of naturalization, certificate of citizenship, consular report of birth abroad to US parents, or a copy of the biographic data page on your US passport. However, for a K1 visa, you'll be preparing a number of documents, which includes this for your beneficiary's K1 visa interview. So I wouldn't worry about this too much for now. But just keep in mind, this is one of the documents you'll need to prepare along with this form as a supporting document. Question 11 asks, what is your relationship to the beneficiary? So I've typed in fiancé, as you're filling out this form on behalf of your fiancé who you intend to marry. Question 12 asks for your employment status. So once again, you can fill this out to your own circumstances. I've selected the employed full-time box and typed out data engineer. And I've written out my employer's name here. There are spaces to fill out if you're either self-employed, unemployed, retired, or other, i.e. anything else. If you do have more than one job or want to elaborate on your employment status circumstances, you can use Part 8 on the very last page of this application form, in which it allows you to add additional information. For instance, if you had a second job, you could write your second employer and employer name there too. Question 13 then proceeds to ask your financial information about your dependents, income, and assets. It asks how many other forms have you previously submitted on behalf of someone you're still currently supporting, not including the current beneficiary that you're applying for. In my case, there is no one, so I've entered none. In your case, you're more than likely going to enter none too. You're not including your fiancé in this box as it's not required. Question 14 asks how many other dependents do you support, including yourself. Do not include individuals in item number 13 and the beneficiary named in Part 3. So for this question, I've answered 1, as I'm not supporting anyone other than myself financially. I am not supporting any children, my parents, etc. You're only including yourself in the number and not the beneficiary. Question 15 asks you to provide the information requested in the table below about all of your dependents and any other individuals you financially support. So I've filled this out with NA. Once again, I am not financially supporting anyone. The instructions state to not include yourself nor the beneficiary in this table. So if you're an individual couple, such as us, you do not need to fill out the table with the beneficiary nor the petitioner information. You would only be filling out this table if you were supporting someone financially, such as a child. So you'd enter their name, date of birth, their relationship to you, as well as their A number if they have one. And once again, this information relates to the petitioner who is supporting any other dependents, even if they don't live with them. Question 16 asks for your current annual income, i.e., how much money do you make per year? As I mentioned, this form is used to show that I can financially support my beneficiary, who is the non-US citizen who I'm sponsoring to move to the USA. The petitioner must demonstrate that they meet an income of 100% of the federal poverty guidelines for the given size of your household, as listed by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. This information can be found on the USCIS website, and I'll leave a link to it in the description box. So when we look at the table, I should meet the earning requirements of over $21,150 in order to financially support my fiancé as a guideline for a household size of 2, which is the minimum household size listed. I've typed $75,000, which is my annual income before tax. If you feel like your income alone doesn't meet the requirements, then you can also use assets to bridge the gap, which is what the next question asks for. Furthermore, should you not meet the income requirements, you can use a joint sponsor, and you and the joint sponsor would each fill out your own separate I-134 form. So the joint sponsor would fill out the form as we've done so far, as well as provide their own financial info, including income and assets, proof of U.S. citizenship, as well as items such as tax returns, which I'm going to run through in this video. And it would be wise for them to include a short letter explaining the primary sponsor doesn't meet the income requirements, and that the joint sponsor is voluntarily helping and understands the responsibility involved in doing so. So question 17 asks for you to provide information on the cash or assets available to you. And this is solely to you and not the beneficiary. The question is basically asking, what valuable things do you own that can help support the beneficiary, that are worth money and can be turned into cash within 12 months? From the drop-down boxes, you can select a number of items, such as your checking and savings bank accounts, annuities, stocks or bonds, retirement accounts, real estate holdings, as well as any other personal property. So in the boxes, I've selected my checking bank account, which there is $50,000. And I've also included my savings bank account, in which there is $30,000. I've then added up the total to show that I have $80,000 worth of assets available to me. The question does also state that you'll need to attach evidence showing you have these assets. And the I-134 form instructions PDF on the USCIS website does elaborate on supporting evidence section as to what is needed to be provided for some of these items. I'll go through the supporting evidence to include once we've completed the rest of the application form. Once again, if you're using a joint sponsor, they would fill out the assets section too, if they're contributing assets to their sponsorship, as well as provide evidence of these items. Question 18 asks if you, the petitioner, are willing to provide specific contributions to cover the beneficiary's basic living needs in addition to providing financial support. So I've checked the yes box, as I intend to support them in every way possible. Question 19 asks to describe the specific contributions you will provide to cover the beneficiary's basic living needs. In this box, we wrote the following: I, Yasmin Jones, the petitioner, fully intend to financially support my beneficiary, Suraj Smith, I intend to provide housing, food, and money within my residency and financially support him with access to my annual earnings for as long as needed and until he is able to support himself financially in the United States, first as a fiancé and then as my spouse after his arrival in the United States. And once again, this just reinforces that you're willing and able to support your beneficiary. You're welcome to screenshot or copy this for your own application form. Part 3 now begins to ask information about the beneficiary, i.e. your fiancé, the non-US citizen. So for question 1, you're going to type in their last name, first name, and middle name. Once again, I suggest having your I-129F application form on hand so you can just copy over all the information accurately. For question 2, other names used. I typed out NA as my beneficiary doesn't have any other names that he goes by. Question 3 is asking for their date of birth. Just remember to write in US format with the month, date, and year. So I've written his date of birth as 05/10/1991. Question 4 is asking to select whether they're male or female. Question 5 asks for their alien registration number. So their A number can be found on their NOAA 2 receipt you received from USCIS saying that your case has been approved. Sometimes it's hidden away next to the beneficiary's name on the NOAA 2 and should begin with the letter A followed by a series of numbers. Question 6 asks for their place of birth. So I've entered the city as London, the country as United Kingdom. Question 7 asks for their country of citizenship or nationality. So again, I've just typed in United Kingdom. Question 8 is asking their marital status. Suraj has never been married before, so I selected the single, never married box. Question 9 asks for their mailing address. As you can see, this part of the form is very similar to the start of the form, which is just asking for basic information. However, now it just relates to the beneficiary instead of the petitioner. So for the mailing address, I wrote my fiancé's name, street number, city, postcode, and country. I made sure to write NA for the aspects that don't apply to him, such as state or zip code, as they are non-existent in his home country. Question 10 asks, are the beneficiary's mailing addresses and physical address the same? I checked yes, as it's the same. So for question 11, I typed in NA, as it's irrelevant. However, if you did check the no box in question 10, then you'd fill out the beneficiary's current physical address. Question 12 is asking the beneficiary's anticipated period of stay in the United States. Due to the nature of the K1 process, you may not have an idea yet of when your beneficiary will be arriving to the USA, so you can write an estimate as to when they'll be in the US. So for the from date, you could write an estimate such as the month after the embassy interview date as a rule of thumb to allow for the passport delivery and for them to book their flights to the US. For example, if your interview date was on the 1st of July, we would write down 1st of August. For the to date, you would select the no end date box, as your beneficiary would not be leaving once they enter the USA, as you'll be filing for their adjustment of status and green card. Part 4 is irrelevant to us. As we are the petitioner filling out the form on the beneficiary's behalf, which is what we selected on the very first question on this form in Part 1, Question 1, so on this page where it states beneficiary statement, beneficiary's contact information, and beneficiary signature, I just typed in NA on all of these boxes as they are irrelevant to us. Part 5 is now back to asking the information of the U.S. petitioner. It says, if you are filing Form I-134 on behalf of someone else, i.e. the beneficiary, complete and sign Part 5. So for question 1, we're going to select box A, which states, I, as the individual agreeing to financially support the beneficiary, certify that I can read and understand English, and I have read and understood every question and instruction on this declaration and my answer to every question. Question 3 and 4 ask for my contact number, so I've included my cell phone number into both these fields. And question 5 asks for my email address, so I've typed this in here. Question 6 asks for my signature. So remember, this must be signed by hand in black ink. As per the USCIS instructions, USCIS will not accept a stamped or typewritten name in place of any signature. However, USCIS will consider a photocopied, faxed, or scanned copy of an original handwritten signature as valid for filing purposes. The photocopy, fax, or scan must be of the original document containing the handwritten ink signature. If you're wondering how you're going to send this form to your beneficiary for them to take to their interview, my suggestion would be to print out this form after filling it in, sign it by hand, and then scan it into the computer and email it to your beneficiary. Also remember to include the date on question 6 next to your signature. Part 6 then asks for the interpreter's information. As we didn't use one, we just wrote NA into all of these fields. Similarly, if you used a preparer, you'd fill out Part 7 here. In our case, it's irrelevant, so I've typed in NA into all the fields on this page. Part 8 is an additional information space page. And if you did need to write any information where there wasn't space on this form to do so, it can be entered here by referencing the page, part, and item number. Even if you didn't use this additional information page, you should enter your name here in question 1, as it is still part of the entire application form. So that's the I-134 form application complete. Let me run through all the supporting evidence that is required to be included with this form, or more specifically, what we included with our I-134 based on the guidelines. As per the USCIS instructions guide, it states that you should provide proof of documentation that you can financially support your beneficiary and gives examples of documents that you can include. Bear in mind that the supporting documents can be photocopies and do not have to be original documents. So the first one is a statement from an officer of the bank or a financial institution stating the date the account was opened, the total amount deposited for the past year, and the current present balance. I had to call up my US bank branch and specifically ask them to generate what's called a confirmation of account standing. Secondly, you can include statements from your employer on business letterhead showing the date and nature of your employment, your salary, and whether your position is temporary or permanent. For this document, I wrote to the HR department at my employer and asked for them to write me a letter stating the above information. And third, a copy of your last U.S. federal income tax returns filed, i.e. your tax transcripts. And I'll show you how to get this in a second. Just to be thorough, I included some additional documents, but this isn't stated that it's required. I included my W-2s for the past 3 years and also pay stubs from the last 6 months from my current employer. So to get your IRS tax transcripts, you're going to log onto the IRS website which is irs.gov. On the home page, you're going to select Sign In. You'll then select Sign In to Individual Account. It's then going to ask you to sign in with an existing account or create a new account if you don't already have one. Once logged into your account on the IRS website, you'll see the home page and you're going to click on View Tax Records. You're then going to click View Transcripts. On the right-hand side, you'll see the Return Transcript section, and you're going to click on the English version of the most recent transcript listed here, and in my case, it's the 2024 Return Transcript. Once open, you'll see your 1040 tax return transcript, which you can then download and print. We have a video on our channel showing you what documents to take to your embassy appointment, which is a more thorough guide of all the documents needed for the embassy appointment. However, I hope this video helped in filling out the I-134 form as well as preparing the supporting documents for this form. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below.